I mean, here we have an EFCC chair who is investigating members of the Senate whom he knows will not exactly be in favor of him. Shouldn't he have gone there prepared?
You want to ask for my opinion? My opinion is, first of all, confirmation by the Senate as enshrined and envisioned by the Constitution is to check, number one, the suitability of that candidate for the job, and number two, whether or not that person is a risk to national security. The questions some of them were asking were necessary questions, but were not material enough to deny him confirmation if the answers were not provided at that time, if they actually were interested in going into the root of the matter.
Let's also bear in mind that this is the second time Mr. Magu was appearing before the senators.
It was the first time.
Well, he was in the room. He was in the closed-door session when, you know, the senators decided to send him back to...
Was he?
He was. That's at least our reporters, you know, covered that. It was a closed-door session with him. Perhaps I don't know if we don't know if he was allowed to speak because journalists were not allowed in. But we saw Mr. Magu go into the chambers of the Senate, and thereafter the doors were shut. Sometime was it early this year or late last year? We saw that, and then it was over this particular report. Now you have been given the floor on a Wednesday when the Senate is usually broadcast live. In front, you know, a lot of the public were very interested in what Mr. Magu's responses will be to what the senators will ask him. The senators were under scrutiny, so also was Mr. Magu in front of a lot of Nigerians. In your assessment, do you think he made use of the opportunity that was given to him that day?
Like I said earlier, that admittedly his responses were not impressive. But what was the fact in issue, what would have been the fact in issue, would have been the works and the results of Magu. Has he achieved is the question they must answer. Number two, is he effective is the question they must answer. And the unfortunate thing is that the answer suggests that Magu appears to be the most successful EFCC boss in the history of EFCC.
Appearance is very different from, I mean, we've heard a lot of times when government people will say that, you know, we appear to be working, but we're not talking as much as we should talk. And, you know, some people would say that that was an opportunity for the EFCC boss to actually talk about what he's been doing. It's very difficult to get him in an interview. And I'm sure that you've also seen him come on, I think it was on Sunrise Daily once. And he was very, very, you know, restricted on what he wanted to talk about or the things that he would talk about. So some people would have thought that that would be an opportunity for the EFCC because there's no agency of government that is not accountable to the Nigerian people, and they must be able to say in fairness and, you know, very clearly what it is that he's been up to. Don't you think that that also needs to be an attribute of an EFCC chair?
I agree without a doubt. And like I said it earlier, admittedly he did not perform, right? That is clear. But then the question is it material enough to deny the confirmation? You
don't think it's material enough?
Not at all. Not at all. Let me even tell you what is happening. It is very unfortunate that the executive and the legislature are wasting the time of Nigerians. And let me say this. Have you not noticed that so far the agents of the executive that are concerned to EFCC are the ones that are performing? The Ministry of Sports, sometime last year, had fumbled in every respect. Was there brouhaha in the matter? No.
I'm afraid I have to interrupt you there. We have to take a moment and we'll come back with that line of thought when we return from this break. Do join us again. Mr. Daniel Obuala is still with us. He's a legal practitioner and also member of Lincoln's Inn. You already said that you know, the current EFCC, beg your pardon, the acting EFCC chair still has grounds to continue to act. But then we see here EFCC chair Oshibajo Malami to decide Magu's fate. That's something one of the dailies is reporting. What will be your advice I think to the Vice President and the Attorney General of the Federation?
I think going forward, in my opinion, Magu should just be asked to leave. If the government insists on the effectiveness or the usefulness of Magu, there are many other positions that Magu can be appointed. Like I suggested earlier, you can take him to custom. Because the reason is because what has happened over this period has given impression to Nigerians, the goodwill that Magu enjoys, the goodwill is waning. And then when you continue to act in that capacity, what is likely going to happen is that any steps you take against anybody can be construed in a different, interpretation, and that can be understood in the light of the situation. Number two, The impression also given is that without Magu, there is nobody else that is capable of piloting the affairs of EFCC, and there are 1,001 individuals who can do it better. And I suggested that the custom boss should be brought to EFCC if it has to be people around him that the Senate are fighting. And then number 3, the allegations. I saw the recent letter by the DSS to the Office of the Attorney General in response to the request for documentation. And it may seem that some of the things that were highlighted in the letter, especially the documents that were attached to the letter, calls for investigation. In the light of that overwhelming allegation, I do not think it would be right for Magu to continue. There should be investigation. You can drop him and bring him back later if he insists he has to go on. So going forward, my suggestion to the government will be to ask Magu to politely leave and then get someone else. But what it then means is that the Senate has successfully scored the goal against the federal government. And more of this are going to come with time.
And they're part of the federal government.
The Senate?
Yes.
There is a different arm of the government. If you look at the activities of APC, it is clear by what is happening that APC is not ready. Because look at the Senate and look at PDP members in the Senate during this plenary. You will see how well behaved they are. It's a strategic planning and strategic exhibition of threats that is going to be a plus for PDP in 2019. Because if you look at the Senate, for example, all of this problem is being led by just few individuals. Now it is even alleged that Dino Melaye and the Senate President and a few other people have now constituted themselves as cabals also in the Senate.
Well, Mr. Daniel Bola, I guess we'll have to explore the political dimensions to this rejection another day. Right. But we've been speaking with Mr. Daniel Bola. He's a legal practitioner and also member of Lincoln's Inn in London. Thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily.
My pleasure.
The program will continue shortly. Don't go away.